Now let's take a look at some images that occurred during the August 21st, 2017 total solar eclipse that I went to in Glendo, Wyoming. We were all situated outside of a football field in a small high school, and it took a long time to get there, and it was a big trip that was associated with a wonderful, wonderful travel agency that I worked with. But I met a lot of nice people on the way. In any event, these images were taken by a person that I met there, Vishnu Reddy. This started the first contact is what this is called when the disk of the moon starts to occult the sun. That is called first contact, and that is roughly at about 10:24 in the morning at the time at Glendo, Wyoming at the time. The sequence up to totality took about an hour and 22 minutes for the moon to move across the sun. So let's see how long this took and watch the progression of images that occurred one after the other all the way up to totality. I paused it here because look at those things. They're called Bailey's beads, and the beading is because the moon is not perfectly round. It has very tall mountains. So what we're looking at is sunlight that's coming through the between the mountains. And that's why there's a little gap in there and there's some little darker spots. It's because there are tall mountains that are cutting off the sun as it's on the moon, as it's passing in front. We also start to see this pinkish glow that I'll describe in a little bit later. And now we get closer and closer to totality, and finally here we are at totality at roughly 11:42 in the morning. This presence of totality lasted about 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Only 2.5 minutes of totality. So everybody was like staring and ooh ah. It's just amazing because you can see this in the sky. You will see the corona using using the special not glasses as per se, but just a filter, a solar filter that allows you to look straight at the sun. You see off to the side on about almost 3 o'clock, maybe 2:30 on the sun and 4 o'clock on the sun. Those little pinkish loops, those are prominences. Prominences are huge loops of gas, of hydrogen gas. That's why they're pink. And I discussed this in the video on the sun. Those things are huge. By huge, I mean each of those little tiny pink loops is much bigger than the entire planet Earth. But the more prominent thing you see is called the corona, which are all these wispy, gaseous elements that they're streaming away from the sun. They're extraordinarily hot. The surface of the sun is about 6,000 degrees Kelvin, but the corona is millions of degrees Kelvin. And so they glow by the heat. They're so incredibly hot that they glow mostly in X-rays, but we see them in visible light as well as atomic transitions in the visible light region. So this is a solar wind, and these particles are being ejected from the sun at extraordinarily high speeds. And I invite you to go look at my video on the sun. What's really important in here is that we had 2 minutes and 29 seconds of totality in Glendo, Wyoming, and you do see this in the sky. This is a photograph, but you also see it in the sky, and you can see it with those glasses. It's just an amazing view. So let's continue on. And then we get to this fascinating part where the sun is just coming out from behind the moon, and we see more of the pink chromosphere of the sun. We see more of that tall prominence at about 2:30 or almost 3 o'clock on the sun's face. And we're reducing the amount of the corona that we can see simply because the corona is very dim with respect to even the chromosphere. So as it came out from behind the moon, or more specifically, as the moon went on its merry way on its orbit, the sun's now reappearing. So the sun keeps appearing more and more and more. We see the beads again, and then finally there's the Bailey's beads again on the other side of the moon. We see that there's one tall mountain in there that's blocking it completely, but then we are still able to see the chromosphere, the pink chromosphere. And this is a great image because you have the chromosphere and the growing photosphere of the sun, which is the bright spot. That would be the photosphere of the sun, but we're still able to catch just a bit of the chromosphere in the same image, which is an amazing image, actually. So this is right after 11:45 in the morning, and by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:10, 1:09 in the afternoon, the moon will have passed completely across the face of the sun, ending the entire eclipse event. It was an amazing event. There is no question. I would do it again, and I'm planning to do it again for the 2024 one. And I'm going to try to do them again later in coming decades and go to other countries. It's just an amazing experience. And if you do not get the chance to see a total solar eclipse in your lifetime, you've missed out. It's an amazing experience, and you should really try to get in the path of totality. Not just see a partial, get in the path of totality. It's a very narrow band, but you gotta try to do it. It might cost you a bit, it's gonna be very expensive, and it only lasts for like a couple of minutes, but it's an astonishing feeling that you get. There's this primal sense, and I'll show you why in a second. Vishnu Reddy collected this data, and this is a fascinating set of data. It shows the temperature of the air. The temperature really does drop. It dropped almost 25 degrees between the first contact and during totality, which is those two orange bars in the middle. That's totality. It takes a moment for the atmosphere to catch up, but yeah, it dropped in temperature, and you could feel it. You did want to put on a coat as time went on. You did want to put on a sweater, but nobody dared do that because it was going to last for such a short period of time. You didn't want to miss any of the action that was happening, but it was amazing to actually to feel the temperature difference. So what did it look like at Glendo, Wyoming during totality, in the path of totality? This picture, again, also by Vishnu Reddy, is about halfway to totality. And we see that it actually does kind of look dimmer. The grass has a different hue to it, as well as you start to see a purplish hue to the sky, and that is true. You do start to see that dimmer thing. It's like you have a sunset, but the sunset is in the sky. That's what it feels like, and it's very strange. You have a sunset happening in the sky. That's the only way to describe it. And it's very strange. Birds start to go to sleep. They really do. They think it's sunset. It's amazing what happens during totality. Let me just show you a series of images that go from that moment, about halfway through totality, all the way through totality. Here it is, totality. This is what it looks like in totality. You're in full darkness. You're in the shadow of the sun, and you're ringed by a sunset. Very strange. The sunset is all around you in every direction because you're in the middle of a shadow. And yeah, you do see, I believe that's planet Venus up there. That's what that white dot is. That's not a marker on the image. That's Venus in the sky. You do see that. Stars come out. You can see stars. It's absolutely amazing. And it was an incredibly special time for me for another reason. My parents are seated here. So I'm off to the left, and my mother is in the middle, and my father's to the right, and he's got a balloon in the background. It was great. These balloonists were trying to keep up with the shadow. It was wonderful to watch them scoot across the horizon as they tried to race the shadow. I do not know how they did that, but they were having a great old time. And this was an amazing thing because my father did pass away in 2021, so he passed away 4 years later. And this was such an amazing opportunity for me to be able to take them on this tour of Wyoming and Colorado. My father had been the president of Northwest Community College in Powell, Wyoming. So Glendo was familiar territory to him, and he was a man of the Southwest. He grew up in Arizona, and he loved all that stuff. So the desert Southwest was part of the family. And I was out there also covering the eclipse for WNYC and 1010 Winds and AM New York. And I gave a live broadcast, a couple of interviews with Salon. It was just an amazing time. I was trying to give a live broadcast to 1010 Winds Radio right during my intention was to be able to broadcast what it was like inside of totality. But unfortunately, it was just so sad. my battery ran out like 10 minutes before totality. So there I was, just standing, enjoying it for myself and not giving it to viewers. But it was an amazing, amazing time. I had a wonderful time with that, and it was completely special to be able to take my parents with me, and it was great. Besides, this for them was also wonderful as well, because part of the tour that I just described at the beginning of this was that it went through Trail Ridge Road in Estes Park, Colorado. And the last time they'd been on that road, they were driving from Boston to Los Angeles in 1955. He was 20 and she was 18. And can you tell? Can you tell there's a bit of a wonderful memory that's going on there? It was incredibly special to be able to take them with me on this wonderful, wonderful tour. Well, after it was all done, we tried to get home from Glendo back to Cheyenne to our hotel, and this happened. There were so many cars that it took hours to get back. I think it took. We stayed at the football field until totality was complete, and I think we packed up pretty quickly. I seem to remember we kind of got on the road about 1:30 or so, and the bus driver really wanted to get us going, but we didn't get back to the hotel till 6 p.m. or 7. It took a long time. And there were a couple of people that thought they'd be funny and ride on the grass to go south and get off the highway, but state troopers weren't having any of that. And got people back on the road. I was really surprised they didn't close the northbound road over there and get people off these highways as fast as possible. But there weren't any incidents of note. There was that guy who did run out of whose radiator did overheat, and there was a really big problem in Wyoming with gasoline, and they ran out of gas, I believe, in a lot of gas stations across Wyoming. So when you do go to see a total solar eclipse anywhere, you have to be prepared for running out of gas in your car, because everybody and their cat, their dog, their hamster is going to go, and they will use up all the gasoline there. So perhaps an electric car with a solar panel would be a really good idea with this time. Do be prepared for anything if you do go to a total solar eclipse. And so that was an amazing view, and here again is the corona around the sun during totality, that 2.5 minutes of totality on August 21st, 2017.